Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Today, I want to share something deeply personal in hope that it can spark interest in making a difference in grooming prevention, because children are groomed for many reasons every day, and sadly, many are sex trafficked like I was. I want to be open with you. Being sex trafficked was horrible. I wish I could find a word that convey the emotions behind the words. I really can't. The emotions are too big and sometimes all-consuming. I am so grateful that I was given a second chance at life, and that mine was not taken at the hands of someone who felt they had the right to silence me and I got away. I can tell you that there were times when my traffickers tried to silence me, and even now, I get the occasional email with threatening undertones to stop my work. Sorry, I am not stopping. I lived, so I am going to keep working to make a difference. However, I do share reality, because even many years later, after I had escaped with the help of Pearl and began my long healing journey, I experienced a different kind of pain. For the first time, I was able to step back and look at my experiences through the eyes of an adult instead of a frightened teenager who was simply trying to survive. That's when I began to understand the true magnitude of the betrayal. When I was 15 years old, I wanted a boyfriend so badly. Looking back, I think part of it was because I wanted to feel like I fit in. I wanted to know that someone liked me. I wanted to feel chosen. In my teenage mind, having a boyfriend meant that a boy thought I was pretty, that I mattered, and that I was worthy of attention. Like so many young girls, I wanted to belong. I wanted to be accepted. So when a boy showed interest in me, I didn't see danger. I didn't question his motives. I saw what I wanted to see. A boyfriend, someone who liked me, someone who made me feel special. What I didn't realize at the time was that my desire to be accepted and to fit in was also something that could be exploited by people who did not have my best interests at heart. Looking back now, I can see how vulnerable that made me. But at 15, I was just a kid who wanted to be liked. When Carl showed interest in me, it felt really good. For the first time as a young woman, I felt seen, important, and in an odd way, I felt chosen. Because of all the girls in my high school and his level of clout, he picked me. I wasn't a cheerleader, and in the pecking order of school society, I wasn't anywhere near his clout level. Like so many young girls, I wanted to belong and feel accepted. So, when Carl showed interest in me, I didn't see danger. I didn't question his motives. I saw what I wanted to see, a boyfriend, someone who liked me, someone who made me feel special. What I didn't realize at the time was that my desire to be accepted and to fit in was also something that could be exploited by people who did not have my best interests at heart. Looking back now, I can see how vulnerable that made me. But at 15, I was just a kid who wanted to be liked, and it felt so good to be singled out by a star football player. I never thought it was odd. Well, maybe I did question why he wanted to be with me when there were better fish in the sea, so to speak, but he did, and I was going with it. I had not had a boyfriend before, and I have no brothers, so I did not understand why at times he acted strange to me, but I grew to trust him and thought his oddities were cute. We had many conversations about me, my family, and life, and I trusted his intentions. He wasn't pushing me for sex or anything, and for the 3 months I was being groomed by his father, we had only kissed. And because I trusted him, I also trusted the people he brought into my life, including his father. Sadly now, I know my high school boyfriend was recruiting me on behalf of his father to be sex trafficked. I believe he played the role of my boyfriend so I would trust him, lower my guard, and never question what was happening around me. Even saying those words today is difficult. When I was 15, I was so innocent and trusting, and I really thought I had a boyfriend. I loved being accepted and belonging with a peer group that without Carl would have been out of my league. Like so many young people in every generation, I wanted connection and I wanted to matter to someone. What I didn't understand at the time was that trust was being built for a purpose, not to protect me, but to gain access to me, body and mind, every part of me. Years later, after I had escaped trafficking with the help of Pearl and had done a tremendous amount of healing, I started looking back at my life differently. The more I healed, the more clearly I could see, the more painful some of those realizations became. As I continued healing, I started looking back at my life differently. Things I had never questioned before suddenly caught my attention. Memories that had sat quietly in the back of my mind for years started looking different. Conversations I once thought were normal didn't feel so normal anymore. Situations I had brushed off as no big deal suddenly took on an entirely different meaning. It was almost like I was looking at the same story, but for the first time, I could actually see what had been happening all along. Over time, pieces of the puzzle started coming together, and honestly, that was painful. I found myself asking questions I had never allowed myself to ask before. Did they ever really care about me? Was any of it genuine? How much of what I experienced was carefully planned? Did Carl ever love me like he told me he did? What I thought was my first love, which is supposed to be special, was really part of a grooming process. There was no love there. Not for me anyway, and if I'm being honest, thinking about this still hurts. My first love was not anything like what it was supposed to be. When I began to realize that Carl, his dad, and all the people I trusted were manipulating me, and most likely laughing about it behind my back, it broke me. Even today, this realization is heartbreaking, and out of the blue, I will feel like I am grieving all the deceit, lies, betrayal, and loss all over again. I wasn't grieving the people. I was grieving the belief that they cared. I was grieving the relationship I thought I had with Carl and felt so stupid that I believed his lies. I was grieving the realization that what I believed was love was part of the process that led to my exploitation. That kind of grief is hard to explain unless you've lived it. Delayed grief is hard, especially when you have to grieve the loss of what should have been so sweet. My first love. I certainly couldn't grieve that loss while I was being trafficked because I was just trying to stay alive. I was mourning the loss of what I thought those relationships had been. I was grieving the belief that someone genuinely cared about me. I was grieving the story I had believed as a teenager. I was grieving the realization that what I thought was love was actually manipulation and that I fell for it. All the lies, stories, and I love yous. I also had to grieve the fact that my innocence was used against me to blind me from what was really going on. I remember spending many nights thinking about these things, replaying memories, trying to make sense of them, trying to understand how someone could pretend to care about a child while simultaneously setting that child up for exploitation. Trying to understand how someone could earn a child's trust and then use that trust against them. The more I understood, the more heartbreaking it became. I think this is one of the things many people don't fully understand about trafficking. People often ask questions like, "Why didn't you leave?" or "Why didn't you tell someone?" But those questions come from the perspective of someone who doesn't understand grooming and human trafficking. As I look back now, what breaks my heart isn't just what happened to me. It's how it happened. I wasn't dragged into this by a stranger. I trusted these people. I cared about these people. And I believed these people cared about me. That's what makes it so painful to look back on. I think about that 15-year-old girl sometimes, and I wish I could sit down next to her and tell her what was really happening. I wish I could tell her that someone paying attention to you doesn't always mean they care about you. I wish I could tell her that someone making you feel special isn't always doing it for the reasons you think. I wish I could tell her that the people she trusts are not who they appear to be. Even now, in my 50s, it still breaks my heart realizing that you even have to question love. Is it real or is it fake? And what is the intentions? Because not every person has the best intentions. I learned that the hard way. At 15, I didn't have the life experience to understand the depth of the manipulation. Today I do, and sometimes I find myself grieving for that young girl who had no idea what was really happening around her, and I have to sit with those emotions and cry. I was just a kid. I believed what people told me, especially adults, because I was raised to respect my elders. I easily trusted people, and I wanted to belong, and there was nothing wrong with that. The tragedy is not that I trusted these people. The tragedy is that adults chose to exploit that trust for their own benefit. That's what makes all of this so sad. The very qualities that make children wonderful, trust, hope, loyalty, and the desire to belong and innocence can be exploited by people with harmful intentions. When I finally understood that, it was devastating. I realized the people I trusted weren't looking out for me. They weren't protecting me, they were using me. I know there are many people listening who experienced trauma, abuse, neglect, or other painful experiences during their childhood. None of that is okay, and my heart hurts for them too. We can't go back and change what happened to us, and we can't give ourselves the childhood we deserved. But maybe we can help create a different future for someone else. Maybe we can be the adult we needed when we were young. Maybe we can recognize something that others missed. Maybe we can ask a question, start a conversation, or step in when something doesn't feel right. That's one of the reasons I created the Recognizing Grooming Before Exploitation Masterclass. After sharing my story for years, I realized that many caring adults want to protect children, but they simply haven't been taught what grooming can actually look like. Grooming often happens right in front of us. It can look so much like normal everyday interactions that even well-meaning adults miss it. This course was created to help people understand how grooming develops, how trust is manipulated, why victims often don't recognize what is happening, and what adults can do before exploitation occurs. And if we can prevent even one child from carrying the pain that so many of us carry into adulthood, then we've done something good. If we can help one child avoid years of confusion, heartbreak, trauma, abuse, or exploitation, then every difficult conversation, every class, every book, every podcast episode, and every effort to educate others is worth it. Because every child deserves to grow up feeling safe, protected, valued, and loved. And that's a future worth fighting for. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Let's Talk About It. My hope is that today's conversation helped you better understand that grooming often happens long before exploitation, and that it can look so much like normal everyday interactions that it's easy to miss. That's why I continue speaking, writing, and teaching. It's also why I created the Recognizing Grooming Before Exploitation Masterclass. If we want to protect children, we have to understand what grooming actually looks like and how it develops. I know many people carry pain from things that happened to them as children. My heart hurts for them. We can't change the past, but maybe we can help create a different future for someone else. And if we can prevent even one child from carrying the pain that so many of us carry into adulthood, then every difficult conversation is worth it. Thank you for listening, thank you for caring, and thank you for being willing to learn. Until next time, this is Sherry Lopez, and this has been Let's Talk About It.